I'm gonna share with you the biggest home upgrade people regret after they move into their house.
I always hated this place.
Before you make that move and start renovating, make sure you consider these options before you take that risk. To keep this simple, we're gonna break it down into 3 sections: outdoor, indoor, and design. Let's jump right into this, and let's start by talking about the outdoor upgrades that people regret the most. Swimming pools. Things to consider if you're gonna put in a swimming pool. The fact is, not everyone wants a pool. They are very permanent. The cost of installation, the cost of ownership, this is astronomical, and these are things that people don't consider. You also wanna factor in the amount of time that you'll be able to use that swimming pool. In my area, in the Chicagoland area, we're getting what, a third of the year, unless you're just gonna pull or plunge all year long. You're really not gonna use the swimming pool all that long. So you end up with something that takes up a lot of space, that's very expensive, but doesn't actually get used very often. That can hurt your property's value in the future. In fact, when you consider the cost of maintenance and installation, that doesn't even come out to the value that you get in appreciation for the property itself. On average, pools only increase your home value by 7%. Depending on how long you live there, you're definitely gonna outlive that savings. Next up, large playground equipment. Now, I can speak to this personally. Going through the pandemic, couldn't go to the park, right? So what was the first thing we wanted to do? We wanted to bring the park to us. Small kids, it's important to have a place for them to play. And I don't regret it, but at the same time, I do. Because now we have this huge space in our yard, our kids could care less. If you have kids, you know very well how quickly they get bored with their toys. It is going to be short-lived, so that's not an investment that you're going to be able to see the benefit of in the long term. Think about the cost of installation on this. This was something that has now doubled over the years. It was already expensive when we put in our playground, but now it's become even more expensive. It can range anywhere from as little as $3,000 up to $10,000, $15,000. That's a pretty big hit for something you may not use that long. But then you got outdoor kitchens. Now this one's a little weird for me. I have an outdoor kitchen. I love my outdoor kitchen. As a matter of fact, as long as it is not just completely so cold that I can't turn that grill on, you will catch me out there cooking food in the dead of winter. But I'm not the norm. A lot of people, when they install these outdoor kitchens, they don't take into account the other factors of how much they actually will use them. Just because you put a kitchen in outside doesn't mean you're just gonna become Martha Stewart. You're gonna go outside and have events and everyone's gonna come over and it's gonna be an amazing thing that you use all the time.
Martha Stewart! How did you get in here?
They look great, but for most people, they don't actually see the benefit. You don't actually use them. Another factor to consider with outdoor kitchens, they are expensive. Not just the grill and the chairs. I mean, patio furniture is insane, but the cost of the hardscape, if you're putting in brickwork, if you're putting in pergola, there's maintenance costs to consider with that as well. So before you make the move for an outdoor kitchen, make sure you're already in need. Don't just put one in because you think you'll use it. All right, keeping it personal, let's talk about circular driveways. These are very popular in my neighborhood. We've wanted one for a long time. We were actually gonna have one installed. This was during the pandemic. But fast forward, once we got around to making that move, the costs have tripled. And this is going from whether you want pavers, asphalt. On the flip side of that now, because we have a lot of friends who have these circular driveways, well, the cost of maintenance is insane. When you have those beautiful pavers, but then you can't keep the little weeds from popping up all over the place, it's going to drive you insane. At least it would drive me insane. Now moving on to the indoor regrets. And I'm gonna start with something out of the gate that I feel very strongly about. High-end appliances. Not only are they expensive and they may look great, but they are highly unreliable.
Apparently the last house, it only burnt to the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got to tell you, fancy stoves, they may not be all they're cracked up to be, and the maintenance costs are going to be more than expensive. It's incredibly annoying. What drives me nuts is when I bought my first home, we didn't have high-end appliances. We had GE Profile, which is a great line and model. I had that home for 14 years. I never had a problem. 1 year of living in my new home and you've got that fancy Wolf stove, you just had to have it. And I've seen this happen with Viking as well. Well, that stove's already been replaced twice. I've had my home for 5 years and we've had to replace our entire stove twice. Granted, they came and did it, but I gotta tell you about the scratches on the floor when they moved the stove the first time. Guess what? That's an additional cost. The next one, I think you've got to remember, like, some of these are aesthetically pleasing, right? The freestanding bathtub. I love it. I think it looks great. We have one in our house. Not everyone loves what you love. And you got to think about, what does this cost? Is this long-term? What are we looking at as far as what type of space does it take up? On the flip side of that, you've probably seen some of these freestanding tubs that people put inside the shower. Fortunately, I haven't seen that trend very long. It looks neat, I think, but I don't know about you, but I really don't want to have a tub in my way when I'm taking a shower. So next up on the list to consider would be the garage conversion. This is really popular, especially in the areas of California and on the West Coast where we've been looking at ADUs, which is great. Now, from a financial perspective, that may seem like a positive up front, right? You're generating rental income from that property, which is good, but something to consider. When you convert that garage to a living space, now, first and foremost, it usually creates an awkward space, something that's not exactly ideal. And maybe that's not a problem you have to worry about if you're renting it out, but if you're using it for living purposes, make sure that it's actually gonna look right. On the flip side of things, if you're in an area where parking is a concern, which, let's face it, that's the majority of everywhere, well, now you've got a problem, because when someone's, later down the road, when you're looking to sell your property and someone's looking at that home, they might really need that extra garage space. So a lot of people regret making the move, converting their garage, only to find out later on someone didn't really want that gym as much as they did. So speaking of home gyms, I enjoy mine a lot, but a big trend, keep in mind, trends can tend to create problems. Well, right now you see this big movement towards indoor saunas, cold plunge. Health is great. Wellness, great. Totally support it, totally into it. But think about before you go and you convert and spend the money and tens of thousands of dollars to put this in your home, well, look at some of the prefabricated options. There are some really good options where you can go through and use something that's already made. And then after you own it, let's say you do own it for 5-10 years and you just can't get out of it. Well, maybe then it's worth the cost, but otherwise you're gonna regret it when you put that sauna in, convert that whole room, only to find out that you've been in there twice. Gyms, home gyms are great. Gym memberships are great. How many people regret paying for a gym membership only to find out that they never use it? Don't let that be your home. That's something that you just can't turn away from. Every time you walk by and you see that gym you're not using, you're gonna feel pretty bad.
I want to quit the gym. Okay. Dave in the membership office handles quitters.
The next type of conversion is converting a bedroom into a walk-in closet. So room count is what has value in your home. When you convert that closet or that you convert that bedroom into a closet, you're now losing that space. You're making your home smaller. You're limiting your audience in the future for when it's time to go through and actually sell your home. I know that you do have to live there and you want to enjoy the time that you live there, but you have to think about how some of these changes are going to impact the future. Also have to keep in mind, do you really need that whole bedroom for a closet? Is that something you need? What do you need into that bedroom? This is not something that could be accomplished through other means. Consider the costs and consider what you're losing. We've covered the indoor, we've covered the outdoor. Now let's talk about overall design trends and things that people regret. Starting with open kitchen shelving. This is a popular design, especially in farm style houses. But after you actually have open shelving, like I do in my house, there's a downside to consider. First is going to be the aesthetics. You want it to look nice. Well, storage doesn't always look nice. What you want to put in the cabinets is not something you necessarily want to have out on display as if it's, a picture for everyone to see. So you're losing that type of valuable storage space. Also something to consider, dust, cleaning, going through, and when you have everything out, if you put all your plates out on the shelf, well, how often are they going to need to be cleaned if you're not using them? I think what happens is that we get caught up in the pictures, in magazines, popular design shows.
Your hammer and demo day are synonymous.
It looks great. When you walk into the Restoration Hardware showroom, it looks amazing, and you can only imagine how great it would be to live there. You're not actually thinking about what it's like to live there. You're not thinking about your kids and the impact they'll have on that fine china sitting out on that open counter. You're not thinking about the impact of being in a hurry and the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. So before you make these types of moves, think about it. What will this actually look like in everyday life? Do you really want everything out in the open? Do you really want to be in a position where something that looks so pretty could be guarded all the time because you're worried about your kids destroying it? I know it's been a problem for us. The other design trend, and this could be controversial, is the open floor plan.
3 words for you guys: open floor plan.
We're seeing a lot of people move towards closing things up. Well, why? Well, first and foremost, it's noisy. You don't have any type of separation. There's also something to consider. One of the most popular open floor plans is the kitchen, right? Well, if you cook a lot, that smell permeates. I don't know if you ever boiled cabbage before or not, but that smell can go through and permeate throughout the house.
What is that smell? What am I sitting in?
Relax, it's just urine.
On the flip side of that, also have to keep privacy in mind. So some people want to be in a position where they don't always have to be in the same room at the same time. Open floor plan takes away from that. Now you're constantly sitting, maybe further apart, but you're still together, and sometimes you need your space. Okay, so now that we know what people have regretted when making these changes, let's talk about some of the renovations and changes that you could make that you won't regret. Let's start with what I think is the most obvious, the needs. Start with repairs, things that need to be fixed. You've got to go through and fix that banister that's shaking. It's driving you nuts already. It needs to be done. So start with something that actually has to be done rather than something you just think might be a good idea. One of the things that I would suggest for people, when we bought our home, we made a big mistake of buying a bunch of furniture right away. We moved in, we didn't take a lot of our furniture with us. And this was great, except for fast forward down the road, not even a year into it, we were in a position where we already regretted some of the furniture that we bought. It wasn't exactly the direction we wanted to go, and now we spent all this money. I think the underlying theme there, if you want to avoid these types of regrets, live there for a year. Don't be in such a rush. When you go through and you live in your house, get a feel for things, get a better understanding. Now you'll have an idea of whether or not some of these changes are something that you'll actually want in the future. Keep in mind, this is not fashion and design when it comes to your clothing. We're talking about where you live, what's functional. I know a lot of people will sacrifice their feet for high heels, right? Well, this isn't the type of move you want to make. You want to live there and understand, like, what do you need? When you're in a position where you thought maybe that open floor plan in your mudroom was a good idea, well, you might actually want to close it up with some cupboards because you don't want to look at all the coats and all the dirty shoes. So live there, experience it, and think ahead. Like, what is this going to look like when I actually live here? What's functional? What makes sense? You know, rather than just the design choices, the paint colors, and things that could be a trend that may not look forward, we'll focus on where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. These are high traffic areas. These are where you spend the most of your time. It's going to be kitchens and bathrooms. And this is going to be looking at the areas where you're not only going to spend a lot of time, but those renovations, when done right, can actually bring the most value in the future as well. Because keep in mind, these high trafficked areas are what buyers look for. I've heard it so many times. Kitchens and baths sell homes. So look at focusing on those areas first. Now, at the end of all of this, when you're making these types of considerations, I can't stress this enough. Set a budget and then increase that budget by 20%. I guarantee that you are going to overspend. It's inevitable, and it could just be a fact of design choice, right? Maybe you find out that you wanted something else and it looks nicer, or it could be the fact that things just cost more. This is constant. This is happening. Inflation is real. We are seeing concerns with this, and that extends to the cost of these types of repairs, renovations, and otherwise improvements that you're making to homes. Besides the increased costs of goods, also think about labor. And most importantly, think about unexpected surprises. I have a rental property that we needed to renovate, problems with the plumbing, so I decided to renovate the entire bathroom. I was like, okay, great, no problem. Let's do this while we're in there. Let's do it and let's do it right. I have got to tell you what it was like when I got the pictures from my contractor, and he had showed me they had moved the tub and there was a tremendous hole below the tub. I'm not talking about a little pothole. I'm talking about a 4-foot circumference that was barely being covered by that tub.
Okay.
Had we not done that renovation, there's a good chance that would have fallen through the floor. And this would have gone into, it was like this pit of despair that was underneath that as well. I don't even know what to tell you about it. So when you start uncovering things, you never know what you're going to find. So make sure you're prepared financially. Let's look at it from a logistics perspective. You're going to need a contractor. I'll assume you're not going to make these renovations on your own. So make sure that you've vetted good contractors. Talk to your friends and family as well as some of your colleagues and find out someone that someone else has worked with and had a good experience. Get a track record. It's really important. You're trusting these people not only with the look and the feel of your home, but they're going to be in your home. So you want to make sure that they're going to be in line with the job that they promise, that the costs are in line, and that overall you can trust them. This also brings us to the cost of permits. I was going to renovate upper part of detached garage in our home, and I wanted to have a music studio put in there. I'm a professional musician my whole life, so I wanted to have this studio. I have to have it. I have to have this space. Well, it was all good when said and done until you find out that from a legal permitting standpoint, what I wanted couldn't actually be accomplished. And of course, there were some people who were like, oh, we can do that, but we're not going to pull the permits. Watch out for that. This could be a violation in the future. This could be something that could come to haunt you when you go to look to sell your home, or otherwise if someone comes knocking and notices that this is out of code. So look into the permits and what can and can't be done before you take the first steps. And last, just avoid rushing into trends that may look good today, but you may not like tomorrow. Try to have some foresight and look into this, and before you make a big move, try to sit on it for a little while, because you're going to be living with it for a long time. Now, when you're going through and you're considering this, and I think a lot more people are considering making these renovations improvements, especially given the fact that the majority of the 30-year fixed mortgages that are out there, which makes up over 90% of the open liens in the US, well, they're all below 4%. People have really low interest rates and they don't want to make a move necessarily. So they're looking to improve where they live. Now, if you're curious, okay, I want to make those renovations, but how am I going to pay for it? Check out my other video. I do a great breakdown of comparing if you wanted to use like a home equity line of credit versus like a home equity loan, the differences between those and why one might be a better fit for you.